The Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical psychology for today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, narrated by David Ault. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear selections from Seeker After Truth by Idries Shah. This audio is made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Science and Omniscience. Question. Ghazali speaks of the revitalizing of the sciences of religion, and other great Sufis constantly refer to Sufism as a science. But since science deals in known and verifiable facts, in repeatable experiments, and in the preference of reality over opinion, how can the Sufis be called scientific? Answer. I do not know where you have found your descriptions of science. Scientists today, and particularly historians of science, are at pains to assert that each one of the criteria which you adduce are, or have been, absent from science. Many things accepted as facts by science are hypotheses which fit all or most cases encountered. When new cases which do not fit appear, the facts are changed, and new theories emerge to be superseded in their turn. As for repeatable experiments, the Sufis never do anything else than repeat what has already been determined, and there are numerous instances of supposedly scientific attitudes being seen in the end to be matters of opinion. The outstanding scientist William Thomson, who later became Lord Kelvin, declared that Darwin's theory of evolution was impossible scientifically, since if the world were as old as all that, the sun would have burnt out. This was, of course, an opinion. It is experience which teaches, not controversy based on supposed logic and assumptions of what is likely to be true. Both the scientists and the Sufis are, at best, people of experience. When they have experience of the reality of what they are doing, they accept it. The main difference is only that scientists are still learning, still developing their knowledge, and the Sufis have already learnt. The scientists have to update their knowledge with new discoveries, and actually do so. The body of knowledge and practice of the Sufis is not updated because its assertions and activities are not effectively challenged. They have been completed. So here you have the difference between three areas: the cult, the science, and the Sufis. In a cult, new information is not admitted because it may disturb the cult. In science, new information must be included because science is incomplete. In Sufism, no new material is needed, since the body of knowledge is already complete. The misunderstandings arise because people put all these things into the wrong categories. They imagine that science is like Sufism in being complete, that Sufism is like a cult, which would cause it to exclude new knowledge instead of verifying it, that a cult is like science in being open to new ideas, whereas a cult only adapts and does not adopt new materials. Sufism is education, in that it has a body of knowledge which it transmits to those who have not got it. Science is like a cult when it thinks that it is omniscient. Deteriorated science is a cult, so is imitative or deteriorated Sufism. So according to how it is handled, Sufi ideas can be demoted into a cult, and so can science and education. The main thing to remember here is that when a cult has formed, we are no longer dealing with Sufism or science, but with a cult. Equally, when people who have been scientists or cultists approach the insights of Sufism, they cease to have the limitations which scientists and cultists have, and have therefore to be regarded, at least incipiently, as Sufis. Keeping people away. Question: how can teaching be carried on by Sufis if they behave as did the classical master Sari al-Sakati, who is reported to have prayed when surrounded by seekers, "O Lord, give them knowledge which will keep them away from me"? Answer: the great Junaid of Baghdad, too, said, "When you see the Sufi addressing the populace, know that he is empty," as reported by the authoritative compiler Kalabadi. These apparently mysterious utterances are, in reality, simplicity itself to understand. In the case of Sakati, he is speaking of the me which is attracting the people, the external him which he knows to be what they are curious about, and which is the superficiality. If the people get the knowledge to keep away from that me, to stop crowding around like yokels at a circus, then they can begin to learn from the inwardness of Sakati. Similarly with Junaid, he is speaking of someone who will harangue the multitude and therefore can only speak of generalities and of things which will please the public. The real Sufi will, like any expert or skilled person, be best able to teach those who have a grounding of the subject. People who have made some study of Sufism, or who think that they have, are always trying to teach. This is a stage in the life of the learner, not of the teacher. This is why Sufis have said, "I longed to teach, but I had to wait until the desire had left me before I could really do so." Even people of great repute suffer from such vanity as obscures from themselves the fact that trying to teach can be a snare set by vanity. The beggar and the coat. The great Abu Hafs was asked by his disciple for permission to teach. The master agreed and sat in the audience at his first lecture. When the disciple Abu Uthman had finished, a beggar came forward. Abu Uthman, before he could say anything, gave him his coat. The master stood up and called out, "You liar! Do not speak to men while you have this thing in you." Abu Uthman asked, "What thing?" The master told him, "You are gratifying yourself, and you are forestalling the needy man's need to ask humbly for his own sake." The beggar and the disciple have much in common. They must each come to the stage where they are prepared to ask, and it is this posture which gives them the focus of mind within which to be able to receive correctly. Parable of the King and the Youth. Question: if the Sufis are uncaring about things of this world, why is it that so many of them have been so illustrious in art, science, statecraft, and literature? Answer: the Sufis are uncaring about things of this world when such things are attached to vanity and regarded as vitally important beyond their real significance. But the Sufis work in the world, and therefore with things of the world. There are many ways of working in and with the world unexpected by ordinary people, who do not see all the cause and effect relationships of people, events, and things. The most familiar story concerning this is the one in which Khidr taught Moses by taking him on a journey and performing various inexplicable actions. And the Sufi too has to be protected in the world, to an extent, by his own awareness, like the camel in the desert, as the phrase has it, indicating adjustment to the environment. There is a tale connected with this in the ancient classic, the Layla and Majnun of Nizami. There was once a king who took as a boon companion a certain youth and was most attached to him. Now this youth, in spite of all the protestations of the king, realized that he was not trustworthy. He used to go every day and feed the royal dogs, a pack of savage brutes. One day the king became enraged at the young man and ordered him to be thrown to the dogs. But they, because they knew him so well, refused to do him any harm. Biographers and saints. Question. Many Sufis, including Jami, Sadi and Hujwiri, wrote as mere biographers of the great teachers. Yet they themselves are now revered as saints. Why is this? Answer. This is answered by Shah Shuja of Kirman when he said, "Great men are great until they know it. Saints are holy until they know it." Question. If I feel myself to be ignorant, how can I start to acquire knowledge? Answer. The ancient proverb is descriptive of this state. Knowledge is instating ignorance. Question. How can one become a Sufi, knowing that one might be losing something in embarking on the way? Answer. The Sufi saying corresponding with this question is, "A poor man fears no thief. A Sufi fears no deprivation." Question. Many people who are disturbed seek peace. Answer. They may never find it, for it has truly been said, "Worry is a cloud which rains destruction." Question. What is a fundamental mistake of man? Answer. To think that he is alive, when he has merely fallen asleep in life's waiting room. Question. How can I combine different methods of study, retaining the ones which I have found useful in the past? Answer. Just as surely as you seek to find 2 dawns in one single day. Question. Must a student always occupy himself with trivialities, as are often mentioned in Sufi writings? Answer. There is a saying, "If you seek small things to do, and do them well, great things will seek you, and demand to be performed." Question. Why should one vary one's interests, instead of concentrating only on the spiritual, according to your precepts? Answer. This is summarized in the injunction, "If you have 2 shirts, sell one, and with the money buy a flower." Question. I have no idea of what tomorrow might bring, and therefore wish to prepare myself for it. Answer. You fear tomorrow, yet yesterday is just as dangerous. Question. Is speech the best way of communicating? Answer. Sometimes, but not always. Hazrat Ali, in a saying attributed to him, says, "Man is in disguise, covered by his tongue," and that refers to such cases. Question. Can crash programs of study and investigation not enable us to get to grips with Sufi teaching? Answer. Hafiz said, "Huge buildings and colleges and colloquia, cloisters and university halls. What is their advantage if the heart is not wise and the seeing eye is absent?" Question. I have learned much and benefited greatly from what I have studied. What can you comment on this? Answer. Jami, in his Baharistan, refers to this state when he says, "Now that I have found thee, I know that in the first step I took, I moved away from thee." Question. How can I help myself? Answer. By remembering the proverb, "The path is not to be found anywhere except in human service," from Sadi. Question. What is the value of externals? Answer. There is value if you realize at the same time the truth of Sadi's dictum in the Bostan, The path is not in the rosary, the prayer mat, and the robe. Question. Prudence requires one to look before one leaps. Answer. Prudence would require one not to leap at all. Hariri says in his Makamat, safety is on the river's bank. Fox and lion. Question. What is the first step in learning how to learn? Answer. It is undoubtedly to abandon the attempt to learn entirely through one's own assumptions. Most people are trying to learn by means of concepts which they have adopted, but have no suspicion that these will not work. There is a story told by Sadi in his Bostan about people misdiagnosing their capacities and situation. A man one day saw a limbless fox and wondered how it could keep itself alive, so he decided to watch it. Presently a lion came along with some meat, ate some of it and abandoned the rest. From this the fox made his meal. The watching man concluded on the basis of this incident that he should do the same, since Providence would surely accord him similar treatment. He waited a long time, but all that happened was that he got weaker and weaker. But eventually a voice said to him, "Do not behave like a crippled fox. Be like a lion, so that you can obtain something and leave some for others." Sufi teaching, unlike that which is followed by others, does not assume that you know how to approach something in order to learn about it. Sufis first make sure that the student approaches the matter in the right way for him. The effect of mystical knowledge. Question. Why can people not be given the full facts and power of the knowledge which all mystics traditionally allow only a little at a time, and to selected disciples at that? Answer. In the words of Ibn Hazm al-Tahiri of Cordova, abstruse sciences are like powerful medicines, which cure strong bodies and kill weak organisms. Similarly, abstruse sciences improve the mentation which can understand, and improve its shortcomings. They also kill the weak understanding of some people. This 11th century thinker whom I have just quoted from his Kitab al-Aql wal-Sir fi Adawat al-Nufus, or Behavior and the Medication of Souls, according to the assessment of Western scholars, is the founder of the science of comparative religion. He wrote the first book on the subject. Question. When was the second one written? Answer. Not for another 700 years, which is a useful reminder about the supposed continuity of scholastic activity. Questioner. I think Ibn Hazm is a fool. Answer. I am only quoting him, but let us give him a chance to answer you. Do you think that anyone can escape opposition and maledictions? Questioner. Yes. Answer. Then I quote you from Ibn Hazm again. Anyone who thinks that one can escape criticism and vituperation is insane. Museum keeping. Question. How can we learn more about the Sufis of ancient times, before the classical period when all major Sufi classics were written? And were those not equally important times and people? Answer. In Fihi ma Fihi, in it what is in it, Rumi deals with one of these points when he says that, although a shadow might enter a house before a man, it is effectively not the shadow which is more important. And if you are not concerned with shadows and are concerned with men, the man may be said to have entered first. So first we should ask what the purpose of the question really is. If you are hungry or in need of nutrition, You may ask me about a fossilized banana skin on the ground. If I have, or have knowledge of, a fresh banana, what is the purpose of the discussion along the lines which you have initiated? If you were not hungry and were a museum keeper, there might be some point in the question. There still might be little point in asking me if I were concerned only with fresh bananas. It would help us both if you could decide what your function is in the situation. This point has sometimes been answered by people to the effect that they both want to eat bananas, as it were, and also to look at the fossils. If we had ever found anyone who was capable of both, the remark might be more productive of further discussion. Remember the man who said that he wanted wetter water? He might have wanted it, but he did not get it. And if he got it, would it have benefited him, since his organism was perfectly well suited to conventional water? Subjective behavior. Question: why do Sufi teachers display behavior which seems at variance with that of people of insight and of holiness? Answer: one might as well ask why dictionaries have so many words with conflicting meanings in them. Here is a classical instance of teaching through behavior. Stolen raisin. Abu Uthman relates in Kalabadi's Kitab al-Taruf that he was once with Abu Hafs, who had with him some raisins. Abu Uthman took up a single raisin and placed it in his mouth. The other man seized him by the throat, crying out, "Thief, why are you eating my raisin?" Abu Uthman explained, "I believed in your freedom from attachment to things of the world, and I knew of your unselfishness, so I took a raisin." Abu Hafs said, "Idiotic man, you are trusting me while I cannot trust myself to be unselfish." Abu Hafs was demonstrating that one cannot rely upon reputation, but must develop to the point of perceiving inwardly what the real state of another individual is. Cause and effect. Question: why is my life so miserable? I am often in despair, and then things seem to happen to me to make me even more worried. I feel that other people do not have anything like the problems which beset me. Answer: anyone who had your attitude would probably have similar problems to yours. Has it not occurred to you that, conversely, other people do not have your difficulties because they do not react as you do to what happens? Have you heard the account of the experience of Farisi and the snake? Thirst and snake. The Sufi Kalabadi was told by Farisi, "I was going through the desert when I became so thirsty that I could not walk. I sat down and, recalling that it had been said that just before someone dies of thirst, the eyes start to water, I waited for this to happen. All at once I heard a sound and saw a silvery white snake slithering towards me. I was so frightened that I leapt up and fled, in spite of my feebleness, with the snake just behind, hissing as it went. Eventually I arrived at a place where there was water, and I could not hear the snake hiss. When I looked back, I saw that the serpent had disappeared. I drank, and my life was saved." Farisi, when he sat down, was not helpless, although he thought he was until the snake approached, and the snake, the second calamity, was the means of his deliverance. Attraction and importance. Question: the great Sufi Bayezid is reported to have said, "All that I desire is that I shall have no desire." This looks like the kind of mystical remark which Eastern thinkers are famous for making. Does it mean anything at all? If it does, what is the meaning? Answer: desire means for ordinary people wanting something, and it is always concerned with selfishness, however much concealed or socially sanctioned. It has often been noted, for instance, that people who seem to be altruistic are in fact obtaining satisfactions from this posture. Now, according to the Sufis, you cannot be paid twice for the same thing. In this context, this statement means that if you desire something and take pleasure in feeling that desire, you have been paid. Even if you are deeply emotionally stirred in what seems to be an other than pleasant way from desiring, you are still being paid by the emotional stimulus. The Sufis also hold that desire of this kind holds people back. They obtain satisfactions or feed their desire until they are either satisfied or chronically dissatisfied. But, they continue, beyond this there is a way of progress, understanding, perception, which is veiled or obscured by desire. For this reason, Bayezid seeks the avoidance of desire. Mundane things, and this includes emotional stimuli, which are often imagined by very devout people to be religious, are pursued by means of this desire, this coveting. It is evidenced by the fact that the thing desired acquires a great importance in the mind of the victim, rather as one desires possessions, importance, recognition, honours, successes. To distinguish real objectives from secondary ones, the Sufis have said, the importance of something is in inverse proportion to its attractiveness. This is the parallel of the negligence which people often fail, in the ordinary world, to recognize important events, inventions or discoveries. That this is appreciated in day-to-day matters is perhaps evidenced by the appearance of this statement in a London daily newspaper, the Daily Mail, on the 17th of March 1979, as the importance of a subject can be judged by the lack of interest in it. This podcast is copyright 2018, the Idries Shah Foundation.